Hey everyone, welcome to Zonan Canada. I'm your host, Jesse Betteridge. The show is now back from a fairly long hiatus. I apologize for the delay. Over the last 2 months, and really over the last year, there have been a lot of big changes happening in regards to streaming and broadcast, quite a few of which have actually necessitated a few changes for Zonan Canada. Moving forward, I'm planning to place more focus on series retrospectives, looking at both popular and obscure titles, including series that have only aired in French. While this could change, the next show I'm currently planning to look at is Albator, also known as Captain Harlock. Basically, I'm going to watch the whole show and do as much research as I can on its Canadian context, and do a show about it, and have one or maybe two people on to also share their thoughts on the series. I'm hoping to do a few more things as well, so as always, be sure to keep an eye on the blog at zonan.ca, the Facebook page, and the Twitter at Zonan Canada. Also, my email inbox has been pretty empty lately. I could really use some feedback to make sure that my audience is satisfied with what I've been delivering. As always, you can reach me through email, zonancanada@gmail.com. A good portion of the episode that follows focuses on The Secret Path, which is an animated special that recently aired on CBC, directed by Gord Downie from the Tragically Hip. And it is without question one of the best pieces of television to be released this year, from Canada or any country. It focuses on the incredibly important subject of residential schools in Canada. And I'd just like to give everyone a heads up that we discuss this quite frankly in the podcast. It is more sensitive subject matter than what we usually talk about on the show, so just be aware in case you have difficulty with that kind of thing. We definitely paint a dire picture, but please do not let this discourage you from checking out The Secret Path. Part of what makes this thing amazing is that it approaches this whole subject in a way that a blunt discussion honestly never could. And it is something that I strongly feel that everyone needs to see, especially if you're a believer in the power of animation. All right, let's get the show started. So Ian Whitcombe is joining me for this episode.
Hello.
Hey Ian, good to have you back. So for the bulk of this episode, we are going to be focusing and just kind of discussing The Secret Path. You may have heard about it. It was an hour-long animated feature directed by Gord Downie from the Tragically Hip. It aired on CBC last Sunday night at 9 p.m.
Where do we begin?
Yeah. So, in late August, CBC broadcast the Tragically Hip's final concert. It was a really big deal. They did it without commercial interruption. They were highly praised for this move. It was hailed as a milestone in cultural presentation through our public broadcaster. Much was made about the deal, specifically that CBC made with Gord Downie, who of course has terminal brain cancer and is been working on some personal projects as a result of that. Apparently this concert was not the extent of the agreement that was made with CBC. Around the same time that this concert aired, details were emerging of another project he had been working on since about 2013, known as The Secret Path. At the heart of the project is basically a 10-song concept album that was intended to raise awareness and more engagement over the issue of residential schools in Canada. Specifically, it focuses on the death of Chanie Wenjack.
His name is Chanie Wenjack. He was given the anglicized name of Charlie in a lot of inquiry documents and in the press.
Yeah, in the there was a famous article in Maclean's magazine where he was referred to as Charlie, at least in the title. The story behind him is that he was 12 years old, and he was a student who went to Cecilia Jeffrey Indian Residential School, which was in Kenora, Ontario. And he escaped with 12 other students, apparently, and he attempted to return home. His home was 400 kilometers away. He basically wandered along a railroad track, and he was found dead on those railroad tracks on October 22nd, 1966. So basically this project that Gord Downie worked on was released and sort of came to fruition roughly the anniversary of when he was found. So in addition to the album that Gord Downie made focusing on this issue, he also worked with comic artist Jeff Lemire on a graphic novel, and the visuals and the soundtrack were combined to also produce this animated film. I don't know when production started on the animated film. Obviously, it had been in the works for quite a while. Obviously, CBC was involved to some capacity. It said it was a CBC production at the beginning. I don't know how much involvement they actually had in making it, considering that the deal with Gord Downie was recent. But in any case, they played a very important role by exhibiting this in a primetime slot. Now, this was on my radar. I was going to check it out at some point. I wasn't planning on checking out the live broadcast, but I was talking to Ian the other night, and he implored me to make sure I saw this as fast as possible, because it was, as you said, it was one of the greatest, the best television production that you have seen this year. And you know what? I think I am inclined to agree with you. This was definitely stunning work, very important work, very, I'm sure also troubling work for many people, but also just an amazing take on this issue. To have this also broadcast on a public broadcaster in like the primest of primetime slots at Sunday at 9 p.m. without commercial interruption, I think is incredibly important. I mean, what were your thoughts on this, Ian?
I don't know where to begin. I mean, I first heard about this at work that night. I work in youth corrections. I work at a youth open detention and custody center that we deal primarily for Indigenous clients. I was told by my supervisor that this was playing, that we were planning to watch this. They were planning to watch this with the youth on the night shift, and they recommended me to watch it as well. I had no idea what to expect. I thought it would be a documentary, something like a passionate eye on the event. I did know that Gord Downie was involved. I did know that he made a record. I knew that there was a graphic novel that was coming out. I had no idea of the format this was going to be, which is song-to-song animated presentation of the graphic novel for 50 minutes, commercial-free, and just a stunning achievement.
Yeah, it's really kind of difficult to pin down like what this final product is. I mean, it is a short film in a lot of ways. It kind of overlaps between a documentary take on an issue, but also a highly art house kind of take. And I would not call this entertaining in the conventional sense that we usually associate entertainment with, like as escapism or something that you gain satisfaction from watching. But in a way, just as entertainment as a category separate from the others, it does kind of touch in that category as well in a, I don't want to say accessible, or even relatable, because I don't think this is something that like the material it presents is not necessarily something that most people will be able to relate with, but it's done in this way that invites people to connect with it. It's very raw and human in a way that I think anyone can connect with.
You used the term fragile in your tweet, which I thought was a great term.
It's very fragile, very vulnerable. As you mentioned, it is very surprising just as a work. Because like when you say that you're going to do some kind of an animated film about the issue of residential schools in Canada, what you're generally going to expect is that it's going to be like some kind of lecture presented in this as this kind of self-flagellation. That kind of mentality would kind of encourage disengagement with this issue, but that's not what this is at all. It's just engaging in a way that I think can reach anyone, even if you're very distant from the types of experiences that are being portrayed, quite frankly, in the film.
The tone is really key because it's fragile and it's relatable, but we're dealing with issues of systemic injustice, cultural genocide, and ingrained cultural trauma. And it doesn't shy away from that either.
No.
It doesn't shy away that this child was victimized. And the McLean's article, and I think the final product, The Secret Path, shows this, that it's very likely Chanie had no idea why he was being abducted. He had no idea what kind of place Cecilia Jeffrey was, and he had no idea why these people were doing what they were doing. Because the relationships between what we consider faculty and student, which so beyond what actually happened there in terms of how we can relate to it is stunning.
Just talking about residential schools specifically, as we get a more full picture of what has happened here, just from a cultural perspective, the way to present it, the way to have people engage with it and learn and understand is so difficult. Because you have to strike a balance in order to educate people, not disengage people, have people just be able to break down barriers between perceptions on why this happened or how people were affected. The Secret Path does this in a way that I don't want to say didn't think was possible, but certainly in a way that we haven't seen before.
I think one of the big things is that this particular story of Chanie, for the most part, can be dramatized without taking place inside the residential.
I think that was a very important part of it, is that we see only brief glimpses of it, mostly at the beginning, and then through flashback as he escapes. I think it's actually quite vital that the main thrust of the story, the actual progressive narrative, is not set in the school. It is his escape from the school. I think grounding it in that really is what really places the perspective on it, because of course it's hard for anyone to, I guess, if you weren't in a residential school, it's hard to place yourself in the residential school. The idea of this young boy wandering in the snow, cold and starving and alone, ironically is probably easier for a person to connect with than, this imposing idea of being placed in an institution.
Some of the realities of institutions like these schools probably cannot be straightforwardly told in fiction.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with medical experimentation, you're dealing with the sexual abuse, you're dealing with the unmarked graves, you're dealing with the children sleeping in their own excrement. That can't be dealt with directly in a fictional context for the most part. Just like a lot of Holocaust imagery and a lot of Holocaust testimony can't be put on show like that. That's really best served by allegory.
Yeah, framing and perspective are very important, and I think also in terms of dealing with things like atrocities, having it animated or having it done in a highly stylized fashion, I think definitely provides that sort of reality buffer, which of course is one of the common things that people say about something like Grave of the Fireflies. Just looking at this as an animated work, it's interesting because obviously the project had been worked on since 2013. I can't find any information on when production of this actually started. Just the way things are funded in Canada, we hear about animated projects that go on here often for years before we actually get a final product. With The Secret Path, I mean, I think the first mentions of it came around when CBC broadcast the Tragically Hip concert. That's when the collaboration with CBC first came to light. Obviously, this film was not produced in that short amount of time. It has to have been in the works for many months. I find it kind of amazing that this incredibly provocative work, which I am fearful is not going to get the type of attention it deserves, at least not outside of Canada in terms of recognition. It almost just seemed to come out of nowhere. And that's very strange to me. It seems to go against what we're used to in terms of not only what we see in just Canadian film production in general, but what we kind of expect from the CBC. And I want to say that it's like shocking, bizarro moment of the CBC kind of pulling itself together and providing the kind of important cultural institution that we should have, but it goes beyond that as well. The process of reconciliation goes beyond the responsibility of any one organization, but this really deals with it in a way that I didn't think anybody would be able to convey.
I think it's also important to note that the Truth and Reconciliation Committee is a federal committee that was funded in 2008, and testimony has been coming in, and they've released a 4,000-page document that will be looked over and studied with recommendations for the years to come. This could be the beginning of a huge change in how our history is taught in schools for going forward. So I think the timing does indicate CBC's willingness and sensitivity to the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and that they're willing to be the first ones out there to present this history.
Do you think that this has any potential to make any kind of impact outside of Canada as well? This seems like the kind of thing that would be good. Like if somebody lives outside of Canada and is only familiar with like the real maple washed version of the country that's become so prominent, especially, under Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister, I think this is a really good way of conveying these flaws with our country's history and institutional problems to people who are unaware of them as well, because it lays out the information quite explicitly in the beginning as well. Do you think it has any hope of getting kind of accolades outside of the country?
I don't know. I think the best thing for it would be if it could get on PBS or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what a typical American response to this would be.
Or just anyone outside of Canada. But I guess in America specifically is where the romanticization of Canada seems to be most prominent, especially in face of current politics.
Yeah, and it's a romanticization that has directly impacted how I think the lack of visibility for Indigenous peoples, because definitely certain racist attitudes and stuff like that. There is perhaps a sense that Canadians are kinder to certain ethnic minorities before.
I will say that the PR heavy approach, the current government, it's not without its benefits. I mean, in many ways, it does raise the international profile of Canada as a country or cultural entity, which is good in many ways, but at the same time, you have that effect, like the maple washing effect, where the actual institutional and racial problems that exist in the country are kind of just erased or obscured as a result of that, where people outside of Canada are invited to project their own fantasies upon what they see as this kind of weird blank slate of a country, which is not a good thing. And if this kind of work could gain notoriety, and I will point out if anybody outside of Canada is listening to this, it is on YouTube, and I don't believe there's any kind of region lock on the presentation itself, and it has a full panel discussion attached to it at the end as well. But I mean, if awareness of this of the secret path could really catch on outside of Canada, I think it could do a lot to kind of repair the negative effects of the PR notoriety that Canada has gotten in the last year or so.
Yes, and it's important to realize the events depicted happened in 1966.
Mm-hmm.
By comparison, in the United States, the Civil Rights Act was being passed. Segregation was coming to an end. Yes, there are horrific systemic racial problems in both the United States and Canada, but the sort of turn of the century behavior by the government that persisted till the late 60s. It's shocking in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways that you can draw parallels to other countries, but just the sheer nature of this of what happened with residential schools when they happened is just so unbelievable, and that's why it's just so hard to get people to engage with it. That's the big problem, and it's so recent. Obviously, the latest. Residential schools closed the last residential school closed in 1996. At that point, people still weren't aware of what was actually going on in them. People were going to these last few schools at the same time that we were in middle school.
Yeah. When did you first hear about residential schools, Jesse?
I was actually going to ask you, because you're from Kenora. You live in Kenora, and you're sort of right at the heart of this. So I was curious about your education on it as well, and your kind of personal connection. High school was when I first learned about it. I know my experience is not necessarily going to be the same as everyone. I think the school I went to was a little more progressive than a lot of schools out there. They were always very forward, at least in my middle school and high school, about dealing with systemic racial problems. I understand that's not the case across the country necessarily, and not all schools or all teachers were as willing to deal with those issues.
Yeah. So I grew up in a house that was 2 kilometers from Cecilia Jeffrey. My mom would go there for gym class on occasion, not long after this event happened. I haven't talked to her about the exact year. In a way, my stomach kind of churns at having that conversation.
Yeah.
The building is abandoned and it's mostly tore down, but the swing set is still there. I never ventured up there as a kid. It's in a quite remote location, and it's quite a hike up there. But my brother had gone up there as a kid and had played on the swing set. I never heard about residential schools in elementary school. I never heard about them in junior high. The first time I heard of them was in class in high school, not by a regular teacher, but by a substitute teacher. He came in. He ditched the curriculum. No work was done that day, and he talked. In high school history, we were, of course, taught about colonialism, about the Indian Act, and about how assimilation occurred back in those days.
Yeah.
But we were it's still intentionally in the dark about what was happening in 20th century politics, and certainly about Kenora history.
Mm-hmm.
The shameful thing is, I first heard about Chanie the day of the broadcast by my supervisor at work, who gave me the Maclean's article. I mean, God, it wasn't on the radio. It was not publicized on the radio. I know that Grand Council Treaty 3, our police service, they had a screening. There was a march. I saw the group marching towards the facility when I was coming home from work that day. I put 2 and 2 together after the fact, but yeah, it's still not exactly everyday knowledge here.
Yeah, and I just knew about it because I follow CBC stuff fairly closely. I really have to stress to everyone, and obviously this has been a bit more of a heavy conversation than we usually have on this show. If you haven't watched this thing, I urge you to check it out. It is on YouTube. It's on CBC's website. It's on demand. I'm sure there will be a Blu-ray release at some point. And I know the proceeds collected from the vinyl record sale and the CD and the graphic novel all go towards the Gord Downie Secret Path Fund for Truth and Reconciliation. So purchasing it does, support the growing awareness and the labor towards that are going towards this cause. It can be very difficult for many to watch, but I find that it invites engagement and it's very compelling. It is very moving. I think anybody can connect to it and sort of just kind of get it. They understand. You can understand just by watching this one work. It accomplishes so much. Having it available on so many media and so many formats, I think that alone is glowing endorsement for what a public broadcaster can do and how it should function. This is definitely one of CBC's proudest moments, and that's saying quite a bit because in my opinion CBC has been drastically improving in most ways in about the last 18 months or so. I think if you believe that animation can accomplish dramatic and artistic things that live action cannot, I mean, here's your proof right here. I mean, if you watch things like anime for the same reason that Ian and I do, this is one of the I can guarantee this is one of the top things you should be checking out right now.
I just want to add that one comment made in the panel discussion was that CBC Arts received 3,000 Facebook comments during the stream, and they say it was their highest ever.
Oh, really?
For an event.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this kind of seems like a weird off-topic thing, but
it's not off-topic. It's Canadian animation.
It is, yeah.
On TV. It'd be one thing if it was just like stills of the graphic novel set to 30-second clips of songs. Even that would be acceptable. Like it would be an acceptable television documentarian approach. but this is a great piece. This is a great piece of animation. It rewards multiple viewings. Like it's not even didactic really. It's beautiful. It's beautifully done. It has visual metaphors. It's perfectly edited. The music's wonderful. I think a couple of these songs are my favorite Tragically Hip songs ever now. So yeah, there's nothing but praise you can give it.
As you have no doubt heard, Shomi has reached its ultimate demise. Okay, so the thing about Shomi is that when it was first being developed, it was supposed to be this project between all the major telecom companies in Canada to offer a sort of not a streaming alternative, but a way to purchase streaming rights to content so that Netflix couldn't get. Obviously, it hasn't really. It didn't pan out. Ian, what were your thoughts on the fate of Shomi?
I'm a Shomi subscriber. I've enjoyed plenty of shows on Shomi, but as the months have gone on, I'm coming to realize that this is not exactly a killer app for the majority of people. And there's several reasons for that, I think. You have to think about Shomi's basically sister service, which is Amazon streaming in the U.S. Now, you're not paying a monthly subscription to stream shows on Amazon. You're paying a yearly subscription to buy into a service where you get free shipping plus access to their library. Now, that's different from Shomi. Shomi is just a $10 a month streaming service where you're adding it to your cable bill.
See, that's the whole thing with Shomi, is that it doesn't, with so many of these streaming services, like the way that they're delivered, often in unique ways, like, you know, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu. Maybe not Hulu so much now that they have eliminated their free option, but their mode of delivery in the US is different, and they all offer something different. In Canada, everyone just tries to imitate Netflix, and obviously Netflix is the 800-pound gorilla in Canadian media, but I guess this shows that you can't simply imitate them and expect a similar success.
Well, and going through their catalog, like I watch more than average amount of Western television than I think most of my acquaintances, and I'm like, for the average viewer, what exactly would motivate them to watch even 10 of these shows if they don't totally just want to consume lots of content? Like, at least Crave has the entire HBO catalog, like back catalog, finished series.
Yeah.
But Shomi, it's like you have some Star shows and you have some Amazon shows. Well, okay, maybe a couple of years ago, like you could say that, I have to see Transparent season 1. It's such a killer app. Well, I don't think it is that works like that anymore. I don't think a person would go and start watching The Americans if they don't have FX Canada, or it's not a completed show anyways. Like it's such a weird way of watching TV, and I think Netflix knows the key because they're into producing into their own content. They're into their shows premiering on Fridays so that people watch them over the weekend.
Well, that's the whole thing about Shomi, is that it's not trying to pioneer anything. It's not trying to. It's being very careful not to replace what goes on with cable services. It's just sort of this extra thing. In the end, they're almost paying people to use it by including it in cable packages.
They're not including it in my cable package. I still have to pay a $10 a month charge on it. Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe I'm wrong about that.
I will say something positive about Shomi is that if you're a Shaw subscriber, you can access Shomi content VOD for no charge on your cable box. And in terms of not worrying about bandwidth and not worrying about picture quality, that's a huge plus.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not a huge plus, but it's a nice plus. It's nice being able to watch a Hulu exclusive series on your cable box as if it was being broadcast in that quality. That's pretty nice. But literally, that's the only real perk they have. So again, I mean, Netflix Canada at least has a lot of Mongrel Media and Sony Pictures Classic stuff going back to 2000. Like, you have to be, like, that's a lot of backlog to watch if you're interested in what they put out. So I don't even agree with the idea that Netflix is bad for movies. So maybe that's one way Netflix Canada is better, because we get all the Mongrel Media stuff.
That's true, we do. And it's interesting that, or not, perhaps also telling that Shomi is declining at this same time that honestly cable and satellite seems to be imploding at a rate that has kind of been unheard of up until now. I mean, there's word right now that that Chorus maybe, if not outright eliminating their bottom 15 services, at least taking enough focus off of them that they may as well eliminate them. That is incredibly bold. I think I heard recently, I think it was on an episode of Canada Land. I can't remember who was being interviewed, but he mentioned that with all the changes all the legislative changes that are going on with cable and satellite, in terms of actual Canadian production, everything is just, there's kind of this big exodus happening. There's no place for any new content to even really be developed. And apparently a lot of that's going, flowing into the CBC right now, which may explain the changes I mentioned before over the last 18 months or so. Or, I guess everyone was kind of expecting Shomi to die. I don't know what the future prospects of Crave are at this point. They've like the HBO library can probably keep it going for a while. I was a little surprised to see the entire service was being shut down, especially in the face of all this drastic consolidation and movement of talent that's going on.
Yeah. And there's some odd things too, like, for instance, Star Trek The Original Series can be seen on Netflix Canada, Crave, and Shomi. Original Twilight Zone is on Shomi and Crave. Where's the exclusivity in some of these contracts? What's going on?
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a lot of exclusivity. The only exclusivity that ever seems to happen seems to be stuff that keep content out of Canada completely.
Or something like Black Mirror.
Oh, yeah, that's 2
streaming services.
What a mess that is.
Yeah.
Also worth pointing out is that for Amazon Prime, its imminent launch is treated less and less as speculation by the media as time goes by. News reports constantly implying that it's right around the corner. I don't know if that's true or not. I know cart.ca has sort of been perpetuating that idea for a little bit, that it would be launching before the end of the year. I don't know if that's really the case at this point, but considering that all those Amazon exclusive titles are not going to have a place to go after Shomi shuts down, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens sooner than later. The most important thing to a lot of our listeners might be the exclusive anime titles that Amazon has, but it's probably worth mentioning that they can't even seem to get that stuff streaming in the US right now. I think The Great Passage and a couple of their other anime exclusives, which they hold the worldwide rights for, but only stream in certain regions, are only streaming in the UK apparently. I don't think that Amazon really understood how to deal with a lot of this stuff when they went all in on that Noitamina exclusivity deal.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that once this mess is sorted out, there'd be some way of being able to watch Difficult People Season 3 when it comes out.
Yeah, that's going to be an orphan.
Punch a wall when it come out. In fact, the idea of it not being able to be seen in Canada would be a joke that the lead character would say in that show.
Maybe the best case scenario is that there's going to be some new material for it.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that before we move on?
No. Rest in peace, Shomi.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to talk about in this episode is the new Escaflowne dub. Just this week, FUNimation finally released their Blu-ray of Escaflowne. If you're not aware, they have created a whole new English dub for this release. I still don't have my set. I ordered the nice collector's package, not the...
I do.
Yeah.
in my hand right now.
Did you get the collector's one or the retail edition?
I got the retail collector's one, not the Kickstarter one, the retail collector's.
Oh, the retail collector's. Yeah, I ordered.
Yeah.
That's the one I ordered as well. So you didn't get the seemingly no effort Walmart edition that they also put out.
This box is really good. My pet peeve with their limited editions, at least this and Cowboy Bebop, is that their booklets, they don't seem to operate the philosophy of giving us anything to read in the booklets, just pictures. So it's good, but
it's okay. It's a thing that's there that kind of justifies the cost. I will point out, just before we get back to the dub, that I'm a little disappointed because apparently in all of the pictures of this set that were posted on different retail sites like Amazon and Right Stuff, it showed that it had these nice clear Blu-ray cases. But apparently, and this was not stated anywhere, those clear cases were actually exclusive for people who backed the Kickstarter. But they still used that image of the Kickstarter in all the publicity photos on every retailer. But if you just bought the retail edition, it has just regular blue cases, which are okay, I guess. But I really wish they had given people a heads up on that. I was kind of hoping for the clear cases. The important thing here, if you're not aware, so there are 2 English dubs on this. They did include the original Vancouver dub, so I mean that hasn't been erased from existence. Actually went out of their way. But they have created a new English dub for this release, and they had a legitimate reason for doing that. Back when Anime Village first released Escaflowne in North America, it was actually not the full uncut version. It was the broadcast version from Japan, which had, about 10, 11 minutes cut from the first 7 episodes.
About that.
Yeah. Those were restored in the Japanese home video release, but for whatever reason, in the entire time that they had the license, Anime Village and later Bandai Entertainment never obtained that missing footage. They never put it in any subsequent release that they did for that series. And as a result, when the show was dubbed, that footage was not accounted for. So in order to have a dubbed presentation, they had several. Theoretically, they had a few options. They could have gotten the voice actors back to go back and redo those specific scenes, which, when you actually look at the way voice acting works, you can't really reassemble a cast 15 years later to reprise these roles and just insert those new scenes into the episode. That idea is a non-starter. They instead opted to just redub the whole thing in the Texas studio, which honestly makes the most sense. I don't have my set yet, so I've only been able to watch clips. So the new dub is good. It's perfectly serviceable. I will say that they did a Kickstarter for this whole thing, and when you do a Kickstarter, you kind of assume that they're gonna go out of their way to do something they normally wouldn't do. I think it really would have been more appropriate if they had kind of sent the dub to Vancouver and gotten the original cast to reprise their roles, because that old Vancouver dub, it's great that they went out of their way to keep it on this release, but it's not very good. It is very well cast. I love the cast. I especially loved Kelly Sheridan as Hitomi, Paul Dobson as Falcon. I thought those were great performances, despite the fact that the dub production was rushed, but so they can get it on television. Yeah. It's kind of a mess, and if you haven't watched that dub in 15 years and you go back to it now with the new release, you're probably not really gonna like what you see. It's not gonna match up to any positive memories you have. I really would have preferred to see them send it to Vancouver to give that cast another crack at it with a better directed dub, but they went with the Texas dub.
My thoughts, first of all, the old Ocean dub is particularly poorly written in its script. It has almost every episode has extremely incorrect translation errors that's really bizarre for Ocean. They have characters speaking the wrong dialogue in certain scenes. One character's mouth will be flapping while they give the dialogue to the wrong character. Some of the translation is toned down as if they were anticipating for the Fox broadcast. So it's very spotty, and I've never been fond of it that way to begin with. And here's the thing about the voices. I love Ocean voice actors. I love them because of their ubiquity on TV, and I think they do have tremendous range. I don't love how Ocean dubs could cast 12 to 15 people in the entire show and have them play every single background character. Mm-hmm. Often to save money. Like, you can tell when, say, a late episode of Gundam Wing or a late episode of Escaflowne or even a late episode of Gundam 00 were taxed because they had Scott McNeil doing 10 different accents for 10 different background characters. And I don't love that. It takes me out of the show, and at least from what I've seen of the Funimation dub, I may not be as familiar with, say, Caitlin Glass or Aaron Dismuke, so I'm not really jazzed for them one way or another. But at least the background voices sound different. At least there's a more variety in the voice acting. It just feels more natural in a way than getting the same 14 voice actors to do every single role.
I mean, truthfully, I'm probably just gonna watch the series in Japanese with English subtitles when I watch it again anyway. But I mean, it's still nice to have a completed good dub. But it's nice. Again, it was nice that they went out of their way. They actually included a separate disc just to make sure that the Ocean dub could be preserved. But man, it is kind of disappointing that they didn't. I would have preferred to just junk that old dub and do a new one in Vancouver. I would have been totally okay with that. One more note. Also, since the show has been on hiatus, it's also been announced that there's going to be a new series of Gintama coming out next year. And I'm a little concerned about that. It's supposed to, adapt the last bit of the manga that hasn't been done yet. And my concern is that they are going to want to simuldub that series. And if it does get simuldubed, as per the arrangement that Crunchyroll and Funimation have right now, I'm kind of concerned that they're going to want to do that with a Texas cast, and then we'll just kind of junk the 50 episodes that they already dubbed with the Vancouver voice actors, apparently, that was posted on the CRTC website, but still hasn't been officially confirmed anywhere. Again, this is one of those kind of speculative things I can't substantiate at this point, but I just wanted to say I'm a little concerned about that. That kind of prosperous return of Ocean dubs might be thwarted because of that recent deal.
I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah.
I mean, yay, more doom and gloom.
Alright, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Big thanks to Ian for coming on. The theme song is by Ultraclystron. You can find this stuff at ultraclystron.com. If you want to contact me, you can reach me through the contact form at zonan.ca, through email, zonancanada@gmail.com, or by Twitter, @zonancanada. As always, if you know anyone who might like this show, please spread the word to them. See you again.